My name is Kyle. I'm coming to everybody live from the EF headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We have one of our former or one of our alumni in Christine Seeger. Christine, you can give everybody a quick wave and a quick intro. Let them know where you're coming from this evening.
Hey everyone, it's me, Christine. I'm an alum of EF Gap Year and I'm calling from Providence, Rhode Island.
Fantastic. Christine's joining us from school this evening. So, Christine, you can turn your camera off. We're going to go through and talk a little bit about our program, who we are as an organization, what EF Gap Year programs are. And then the second half of our night tonight, Christine is going to talk about her experience and answer as many questions as we can possibly get to. We hope to have everybody out of here in about 45 minutes, but we're down to hang out as long as is helpful to make sure that you all have a really clear picture of how to approach gap year planning. So let's get this thing started. I think first off, I want to help make sure you know who we are as EF, who we are as an organization. So EF, Education First, if you didn't know what that stands for. And I think the easiest way for us to summarize who we are is that we are, simply put, the world leader in educational travel. So since 1965, so close to 60 years, we've quite literally helped millions of people to travel, to see new places, to experience new cultures, to learn new languages, to discover new things about the world and about themselves as well. So as you hear everything that we touch on tonight, I think a lot of our perspective around the way that our GAP programs have been developed, what we think a GAP program should look like in 2023 really comes from decades of experience of working with uh, students. And maybe some of you tonight are familiar with some of our programs that we run with educational tours or with EF Explore America, where we partner with thousands of high schools across the entire United States. Or maybe some of you are familiar with our EF Study Abroad programs, where we partner with, again, thousands of colleges all across the US, or some other EF programs like Go Ahead Tours and EF Ultimate Break. But no matter where you're coming to us from this evening, I think that a big, really cornerstone part of what makes us unique is our presence around the world. So as I sit in our Cambridge office, I'm fortunate to be able to call close to 50,000 of my colleagues and our staff around the world, colleagues, where we have folks in nearly over almost 115 different countries where we have EF staff located. So we come tonight with that perspective. It also is a foundational piece of how we're able to run programs, make sure that we can deliver meaningful, impactful experiences, and of course, to be able to have the resources, the safety net, the experience to support our students wherever they are. We'll actually touch on some of that too. We are in a stretch over the last few weeks, including today, where we're seeing students off for their fall semester. I spent some time with some of our semester students right here in the Boston office earlier this afternoon. They're off right now. They're having dinner this evening together in the city before they head out to Iceland in 2 days. So it's a really fun time of year to be able to actually bring what started in sessions like this with planning all the way through to the culmination of hitting the road. So tonight, as we start to talk specifically about gap years, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of perceptions around what a gap year is and what a gap year isn't. And I think that we all have seen the impact that COVID and the shifting landscape of not only the world, but definitely higher education has looked like in the last few years. And it's really put a spotlight on students thinking very, very intentionally about what is it that they want to do after high school? What helps them to take that best next step and really become the best version of themselves. So I think tonight we want to anchor when we are talking about gap programming with EF, we present or we would offer the thought that a gap year in 2023, so a modern approach to a gap year, is something that should be intentional, focused, centered around personal growth, and is really, it's a step up, it's a step forward. It's a way to be able to help students gain experience that really rounds out their interests, or maybe complements their interests, or maybe helps them explore and find things that they're interested or passionate about. So if you're here tonight and you are curious about a gap year, if you are wanting or maybe thinking about taking a gap year, but you just don't know how to pull all those pieces together of planning, maybe you're someone who is deferred or is thinking about deferring from college so that you can take a gap year or semester or short-term program. We'll cover all of those. Or maybe you're somebody who had a story like me, where I went to freshman year of college and said, you know what? I think I need to do something different to just shake things up and find a little bit more about who I am and feel confident about what I want to do before returning to college. So if any of these resonate with you, you're in the right place. We work with students 18 to 22 years old, and I like to use the expression who are along their college journey. So some join us on a traditional gap between high school and college. Some will join us along that college journey, and some will join us after graduating college. A lot of different reasons about what may bring each one of our students together, but we're going to do our best to highlight and touch on some of the nuances that may be relevant for you tonight. I also want to just early on, I mentioned that there's a lot of misconception, there's a lot of perceptions around what a gap year is and how it works. When it comes to making a gap year in college work, I think with our program, with our students, close to 95% of our students are going either from their gap program with us back to university or onto university, or maybe have just come from university. So we really know many of you tonight are thinking about how can I make that work together? How can I make gap and college complement each other to help me really feel like I'm well-rounded, I'm learning in a meaningful way. So we would offer these three paths as the most common things that we see students that are joining our program to bring that college and gap experience together. So first would be that path number one looks like you're applying to college just like you normally would. Maybe you're in that process right now, through the fall as we lead up to some of the initial deadlines here in a few weeks. Once you hear back from college, you defer your acceptance and enroll in a gap program. So we'll explain more about what deferral means, but really it just means pushing off your acceptance 1 year to allow space and time for a gap program. Path number two, you commit to your gap program first, and then you use this year and maybe even your gap year to research and to apply to schools that you think are the best fit. We know a lot of our students get to senior year and they're really just starting to gain, consciousness and an understanding of what's important to them and what they want to pursue in the future. So they're using that gap time and their senior year to be more intentional and not just rush into college. And there's a lot of data that backs that up that we don't have to get into tonight, but really the focus is making sure that you make that good solid jump into something you're excited about. Or path three, that you're applying to colleges during your senior year. When it gets to the spring, you have the option to either defer, or you could choose to reapply to different schools, more schools, the same schools during your gap year, and maybe expand that a little bit more, add on more experience, and be more intentional again with your applications there. I think most of us are familiar with the general outline of senior year as we get into that thought that probably begins the spring and the winter of junior year, thinking about what happens after graduation. We know that in the fall, most of you are researching college options, working on officially applying. You'll start to hear back at some point in the winter or early spring. And then typically by around May or June 1st, you're enrolling in the college of your choice. We're offering this because it matches up really well with what a typical planning process would look like for, especially for our seniors, but it really can map at any time depending on what your interests or your motivations are. We have a lot of our students who are working with us right now, both for spring, for next summer, and for next fall, to find the right programs for them and to be thinking about which college best matches that. Throughout the fall and the winter, they're working with our team, and everyone works with a designated gap year consultant with EF that helps you to unpack your goals, the outcomes from your program, and best match that up with the program that helps you achieve those. And then last, working with you to make sure that you have that plan solidified when it comes to gap and college complement each other and working together. Now, as you're thinking about and researching gap programs, it is important to remember that there really is no typical gap student. There's not one reason to take a gap year. And for myself, I've worked with thousands of families and students at this point. I really find that one of the really fun parts of my work and our job here is every family is a little different. Every student's a little different. I think everybody has slightly different goals, motivations, backgrounds, interests, aspirations. We're just offering some of the aggregated data from the Gap Year Association. We're a member organization of that third-party organization that's really looking at the broader gap year state across the entire country. And I think these are just some really common themes that we hear from a lot of our students in terms of why they want to take a gap year and what they want to get out of that experience. I think right at the top of the list, we see gaining life experiences, growing personally. having a break from the academic track. I think those often work hand in hand. I hear anecdotally a lot from students. I've been in school my entire life. We have a lot of amazing, high achieving, hardworking students who have not only been in school, but they've also been in clubs, academic, sports, whatever it may be. We also have some students on the opposite end of the spectrum where maybe school just has been challenging, and they just have never been able to quite click in the right way. So finding the right way for them to grow personally, depending on where they're at. And then there's all sorts of fun things that you can think about that really help you to gain unique, meaningful experience that sets you apart, that you can put on a resume, that you can talk about in a job interview and a college application. But maybe more importantly than that, it's about developing skills and experience that helps you really be your best selves. So I just think as we're thinking here tonight and starting to look at some of these photos of a few of our alumni and some amazing places, and these are all places that we travel with our students. I'm seeing just on this map right here, I see starting in Boston, and I see Venice, Costa Rica, Peru, New Zealand, Sevilla is on here, probably a few others that I can't recognize. That covers a lot of it right there. But all of them started at a point where you are tonight. And they started by asking themselves questions like, what am I curious to learn? How do I make that happen? What type of experience do I want to gain? For example, do I want to learn a language? Do I want to have an opportunity to work in a rural environment? Do I want to have an opportunity to work in a professional environment? What's going to help me, or what's something that can challenge me to push myself outside of their comfort zone? And we are really, really big as a team when we're working with students and families to start at this point of thinking about goals. So hopefully you being here tonight can be a jumping off point. If it's you as a student, if it's connecting with your family, I would just offer, thinking about what you want to gain, what you want to get from your next step, will lead you, whether that's with GAP or whether that brings you straight to college. I think that that's a really important part of this process, that sometimes momentum can just carry us to a decision and say, oh, I'm going to college. That's what everybody does, right? Isn't that the right thing? And I think you're here tonight because you're trying to pause and think, well, let me just think about that for 1 minute and make sure that I don't make a rushed decision that doesn't really align with my goals. And I mentioned briefly, for us, this is an amazing time of year. These are some photos from the last few weeks. I mentioned we have students that are going through an orientation with us here in Boston, and I can just see the excitement, the energy. It's such an amazing process for us. We get to see students at the start of their program coming to us, oftentimes, and I think whether they show it or say it or not, full of anxiety and nerves and, did I make the right decision? Am I in the right place? Being able to see them go through the experience and then turn out for folks like Christine, who's gotten involved, been involved, and we'll talk about her experience of going all the way through her program with us at the end. So hopefully, if anything's resonating tonight, the way that our process works is that number one, you connect with our team. We call ourselves Gap Year consultants within our organization. I think we all, collectively as a team have some unique backgrounds, whether it's Mitch, who lived in Nicaragua and runs and still has run a sustainable farm there for a decade and more, whether it's Casey on our team, who's a former teacher, whether it's Duncan, who worked in higher ed, was a coach and worked at Middlebury, and Anna, who worked in higher ed. Everyone's bringing something unique that I think can really complement the work that they're doing with students. And we'll bring you through the process to make sure that if this is the right fit, you've got a good plan to be able to make that happen. All right, awesome. So that's a background on how and why we go about this. So let's talk about programs. This is going to be the express version this evening, just so everyone knows. So if it feels a little rushed, it is. This is a light touch on programs to give you a sense of what we do and what we offer. Totally excited and able to unpack any of these in a more detailed lens as we get into Q&A at the end or in a follow-up conversation. The big concepts to understand tonight is that when we think gap year, it actually really is gap program. And we offer 3 different categories to make that work. Short term, which we run in the summer, the spring, and the fall. So this is an option for some students that maybe can't take an actual gap in between high school and college, or maybe it just doesn't work for them. And summer is their time to travel. We also offer more traditional semester programs, both in the spring and the fall. And then we offer a standalone gap year, which is just like an academic year. Fall semester, winter break at home, continuation of this spring semester in the spring, as you guessed it. Um, our short-term programs, again, summer, spring, fall departures, we've got a few different unique opportunities. All of these are centered around cohort-based experiences to allow students to be able to get out into new environments and have some exposure to the places that we're traveling to. So whether it's European exploration, where you're traveling together as a cohort, getting a chance to visit the UK, Italy, France, Switzerland, and really being able to understand some of the nuances and differences as we travel through these countries and get to experience the different food and cultures and languages and travel systems and political backgrounds, really being able to compare that and understand what that looks like and feels like. Or you might be a student that's excited and interested in the opportunity to work with NGOs, to work with local sustainable organizations where we have Costa Rican exploration that allows students to travel, again, cohort based, traveling together to actually focus on service work and service learning projects throughout the country, in addition to some fun travel throughout that 4-week program. Got some super exciting programs that we just launched in the last week. Japan, which is an amazing and hard place to travel to. And we know in the world of GAP, there's not a lot of opportunities for students to be able to get to Japan. So we're excited to launch Journey to Japan next fall. That's going to be based around allowing students to experience the entire country, dive deep into the culture, have a coordinated itinerary of being able to see different sites, have a balance of free time, do it with our staff and a cohort of other students. Or maybe you look into East Asian exploration, which is going to combine time in both Japan and Korea as well. So we've got a lot of students interested in the language, in K-pop, in anime, in some of these really major cultural differences that this program centers around. If you are a US student that's grown up and taken Spanish, we have a 4-week language-based program in Spain that's starting next fall that allows you to dive a little bit deeper and continue to work on that in a place where you can actually be speaking and using the language every day. As we transition to our semester programs, we're going to build on similar themes that I just touched on. So Pathfinder is actually the program where we have students in orientation. Now they're set to launch to Iceland, and then you can see all the different locations that they'll travel through. The entire concept here is that they're getting that exposure to the central themes in each of the countries that they're visiting. So in Iceland, they're going to learn about geothermal activity. They're also going to get a chance to meet with a local fisherman in a village in Iceland and understand the fishing industry that is really unique and prominent to a small geographical country, a small relatively GDP to other countries. And in a similar concept, we'll then move into a few different semester programs here. So Explorer is a semester program we're running for this spring of 2024 that combines travel in Europe, language in Europe, and then service work in Thailand. Language and Culture of Spain is a semester-long Spain that is focused around practicing and using and developing your Spanish language at the EF language school. But you can also see we do some amazing traveling while we're there, visiting Valencia, Alicante, Lisbon, Malaga as well. Really, really well-rounded and just beautiful places that we're visiting. Language and Culture in Japan, again, similar in concept. It's a language-based semester program that also builds in travel and excursions there. Changemaker centered around Latin and Central America, where we'll spend time in Costa Rica, the DR, Peru, and Ecuador. We'll throw in some travel as well as service programming throughout that semester. Really cool, really unique. Voyager, I don't know if there's another itinerary like this. We'll visit Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, and Japan throughout that entire semester. And then for any of our students that are really centered around gaining that hands-on practical experience, business and entrepreneurship in Stockholm is really, it's an internship-based semester program where we work with you to place you into an internship, a 2-month internship where you are living and working just like a young professional. Maybe it's in business, maybe it's in nonprofit, maybe it's in education, the arts, a few different disciplines, but the goal is to give you the experience of being in that professional setting while you're there. We also offer some individual study abroad programs. Now, I think that you will start to see this becoming more and more and more of a trend. We work with, I mentioned, a number of different colleges, Texas Tech, University of Texas, Colorado, state would be a few that just come to mind. And we know that there's a big demand to change the way that study abroad works and functions. And the way that we are starting to approach that is by offering meaningful, relevant experiences for students earlier on in their college journey. We hear it all the time. Whenever we speak with students, they want to have more of that cultural understanding before they get too deep into their college process, where they're on a major track, they're going to have less flexibility. And oftentimes, the traditional junior year study abroad comes just a little bit too late in the game, where students don't have the chance to use that experience and come back home and say, you know what, I learned so much here. I think that I may want to study this. At that point, they may already be stuck on their path. So we want to offer experiences for students who are maybe a little bit more academically minded, are wanting to do this maybe as a gap year or after a freshman year or as part of their first 1 or 2 or 3 years of college. So these are all credit bearing programs that we have relationships and partnerships with local universities on the ground. They're all incredibly exciting. Mosaic in Spain, centered around Spain, but we're also going to spend time in the Netherlands, in Morocco as well, learning Spanish, taking language classes, taking courses at the University of Granada. I think the amount of variety in that semester is really unique. I don't know if there's another program that's set up like that, or global business, where we're partnering with the Hult International Business School in London so that students can have a really deep dive into understanding the fundamentals in business over the summer to then take that with them off to university. Or we have a J-term program in sustainable development in Costa Rica that's focused on sustainable issues, because we use the curriculum of the blanking on our sustainable development goals, excuse me, that in partnership with the UN and the University for Peace in San Jose, that's at the core of our curriculum and our fundamentals there. Okay, last program to touch on, and no, we're going through a lot here, but our gap year program, which is it's a culmination, it's a balance of everything we just covered. So our fall semester is centered around a cohort-based experience that gives students the opportunity to see and do a lot together. So they're going to start off with 6 weeks in Europe. That's going to be a week in each place of London, Paris, Florence, Zurich, Munich, Prague. I mean, just that in and of itself. The balance of, again, cultures, the themes of what we're focusing on while we're there. They'll then transition into 3 weeks in Australia, 3 weeks in Thailand. So by the end of your first semester, we would say you'd become a certified world traveler. You've done that in a supported, fairly structured environment so that for the second semester, you can decide, do you want to spend your spring doing a deep dive into living in a city, learning the language by taking classes at the local EF school in that city, whether that's in Tokyo or Singapore or maybe Rome or Barcelona? Or do you want to jump into a 2 month internship back in Stockholm, where we're a Swedish company, a Swedish family run company? We've got really deep roots in Sweden, and our partner companies that we work with for our internship opportunities, we can work on getting you a placement to be able to live and work while you're there. I hope some of this is exciting. I always find myself carrying on a little bit here because it is exciting. So if anything resonates with you there, we'll bring it back to our process. So that would look like you being able to say, okay, if I want to do this gap year program, that what you can do is hear back from your college and make a request to defer, which just means that you're going to postpone your enrollment to start college, typically a year, sometimes a semester later. I think we find in talking with our students, it is, by and large, much easier than it sounds like it's going to be. Typically, you are just submitting one letter that's usually through your student portal at that university to request for your deferral. And we also recognize that sometimes making that jump to commit to a program like ours can be a little scary without having that guarantee that the deferral will go through. So we offer a deferral guarantee. We know this is hardly, I think we can count single digits that we've ever had students that weren't approved for deferral. And because of that, we can feel really confident to offer the guarantee that if for some reason your university doesn't approve your deferral, that we'll offer you a refund to be able to make that work. All right, we're wrapping up here. I do want to just point to, so Harvard's, it's close by, it's down the street. I think we all know the name, but they have been out in front in many different issues for a long time. And Gap Year has actually been one of them. They send a letter to all of their accepted students encouraging students to, as it says here, to defer enrollment for 1 year to travel, pursue a special project or activity, work, or spend time in another meaningful way. And again, in our partnership with the Gap Year Association, we just see that the research shows that students who take that time show up on campus and get more out of their experience there. I want to share one more story. We have a student, Diego, who says that through different service projects, I realized that fashion is my career and what I want to do. Taking a gap year with EF helped me get into my dream school, which was Parsons, after getting rejected the first time around. So Diego added some more onto his resume, reapplied during his gap year, and is pursuing it at Parsons now. All right, folks. Christine, it is your time to shine. So I'll invite you to come back. And I also, Christine is battling through. She's maybe not feeling 100% today, but she's like, I really want to do this. I want to be there. So kudos to you for jumping on tonight, Christine. And maybe since you already introduced yourself briefly, maybe you can just let everybody know where are you at in school? And then can you just tell us, what did you do for your GAP program with us?
Of course. Hi, everyone. So I'll introduce myself quick again in case you missed it, but I'm Christine, and I am currently a sophomore at Providence College in Rhode Island. I'm studying marketing, and I'm thinking about adding a double major or minor in finance as well. And for my gap year, I did a program that is not quite around anymore, but it involved me doing like a 2 week travel all through Europe, and then a language program in Barcelona, which was amazing. I learned a lot of Spanish. It was incredible. And then a internship in Sevilla. So it was absolutely amazing time of my life, and I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Awesome, Christine. All right, so let's jump into it. I think since tonight is talking about the theme of planning and how we think about planning, can you talk to us about how did you decide that you wanted to do a GAP program? And if you remember, do you remember how you found EF and decided that this semester was the one that was for you?
Of course. So, a gap year was kind of always on my mind. I am the youngest of five kids, and my older brother, Kevin, he also took a gap year. He took one for kind of different reasons than I did, but he had an incredible experience and came back, I would almost say a different person. He was much more confident. He grew so much, and like watching the effect that his gap year had and just hearing all of his stories kind of got me thinking about taking a gap year and could I do something like this as well? And then my senior year was during COVID, so I was in lockdown. It was not very fun. I also happened to tear my ACL, which kind of put me in double lockdown. I wasn't even walking, and I just kind of felt like my life slowed down. And I had that thought of like, I'm young for a certain amount of time, and I felt like a year had been wasted. And I said, what could I do to kind of get that year back and like have an amazing experience that I felt like I kind of missed out on? So I started researching these gap year programs. I did a lot of research and I looked into pretty much anyone that you can name, but I ended up settling with EF and pitching EF to my parents just because EF allowed a lot of independence within their program, which is something that I definitely wanted. Um, I felt like it would allow me to prosper. It was something that I was looking for. And then also on top of that, have that like guided traveling that allowed me to really see everything in a short period of time. So it was that combination that really stood out to me and pitched it to my parents. And I was happy that they were on board. And then together we kind of made that decision that a gap year would be for me.
Fantastic. So for your family, there was some familiarity around this concept of a gap with your brother going through that process before. What sort of reaction did you get from your family? Like, how did they initially respond when you brought that to them? And maybe even like your friends or other people in your community? Because I know a lot of times when this comes up for students, there's a lot of mixed reactions, but I don't know. What was your experience like?
For sure. I think when talking to my family and my friends, it was always just kind of an idea that was out there. I've always been kind of known as like an adventurous person. I love to travel. I kind of made it a personality trait of mine when I was younger, and I guess still now, especially after the gap year. But I love to travel very like so much, and whenever I would tell people it, it was kind of always like a out there idea. But then I started getting more realistic about it. Um, had all the information and like I said, when I witnessed my brother and how much he like really changed from his gap year, I knew that despite what people were thinking or like, oh, are you even going to go to college after that? Like that's a misconception you'll hear a lot is, oh, if I did that, I would never go back to college. I knew that college was an experience I wanted to had. I value my education a lot. So I said, just with taking this year off does not mean I won't be going back to college. And I did defer my decision to Providence College. Um, and so I was just kind of able to shut that down and say, why not have both if I make that decision for myself? And so that's kind of what I did.
It's a great response. Could you talk about what was your experience like with the deferral as well? Because I think that you've had students ask you about that process and maybe from your own perspective, but also a lot of other colleagues of yours that were on program went through the similar process. So what would you say is the general overarching themes about how to think about deferral with college?
So deferral was almost too simple. It like surprised me how easy it was. I looked on my website, like typed in the search bar deferral for the Providence College website, and I found an email. I emailed the email like a quick little blurb about who I was, what I would be doing during my gap year, and I think we set up a quick phone call, and then that was kind of the end of it. I got my email back stating that I was officially deferred, and at least for my personal experience, my college, they held all merit money that I received. So that was kind of a great thing as well because I guess it's a general theme that each year colleges are tending to get more competitive. And so since I was applying in the graduation class before, I just had that little bit of a leg up and I was able to hold any merit that I got as well. So they can't take it
Right.
away, which I thought was amazing.
It's a nice plus to have. Yeah. So, okay. So knowing that you had that, that's an important note because we had a few folks asking about just the finances of how do you approach that. This would be a good one too. Again, Christine, because you traveled with a lot of people and I think you've seen this. Everyone plans differently. So your financial plan represents you, but there's a lot of ways that students approach that. Like what are the ways that you have seen people make this work financially when it comes to creating that plan?
Of course. Since traveling has always been in the back of my mind, I was able to kind of plan accordingly. I've had a job since as long as I can remember. I think I took like the babysitting course when I was underage. I think you had to be 12 and I lied and I said I was 12 and I was really 11. But
We won't tell
I'd been
anyone.
working, yeah, don't tell the Red Cross. But I had been working for as long as possible and able to like kind of plan accordingly. And then just on my gap year observing, people come from all different walks of life. Like there will be people who are there and they're there to budget. They have their budgeting plan and they will be doing following strictly um, because that was the sacrifices that they were willing to make. And then on the other side, there was people that were heavy spenders and there to make the most out of it and definitely did for sure. So, but you'll never be alone in whatever situation that you're in. Um, Multiple people were from every end of the spectrum. So I just found it comfortable because and everyone was willing to kind of adjust their needs and like their wants of what their friends were around them. Um, and like I feel like for a lot of people it might be your first time out and about, but just being able to learn it, like learn real budgeting and how to manage your money, that was another thing that I guess I really did learn. And that was an incredible lesson as well.
That's a great one. Maybe just one more point. I'll jump in this. Callie asked a great question, and Christine might just not have privy to know this, but I mean, we see families sometimes planning 2.5 years in advance. We do have payment plans, so it's typically just a monthly payment plan. So in general, the longer that you have to be able to plan and prepare, the easier that is. To be able to stomach to make that work. We did have another question though, Christine. You could speak to this. So what's included and what's not. Maybe you could just touch on, I think tonight, generally speaking, EF is going to include your accommodations, the travel, the flights, your trains, your buses, a portion of your meals. How would you just generally speak about this is what's included, this is what you need to budget in or budget for rather?
Of course. So all those things that you listed were included. There's going to be some meals that you'll be paying for by yourself, and then of course, extra activities or excursions that you choose to do, any traveling on the weekends. So I think when you take your gap year, you really make that decision on, am I going to put everything into this? And like, if I have the opportunity to travel on the weekends because I'm here and it's going to be less expensive, budget for that accordingly. That's something that I really wanted to take advantage of was doing weekend trips that I planned by myself. So that was all independent. But I think one thing that kind of gets overlooked in what you are paying for is you have a tour guide when you're on like your excursions and depending upon the program that you are in, if it's a more guided program, I'm still in contact with our tour guide. His name was Yvonne. He was incredible. And with every city that I went to, I could text him and say, Yvonne, what are my must-dos in this city? And he'd send me back a list. He sent me back a list of restaurants. I like don't even understand how he knows so much about so many different places, but he was incredible. And so that definitely is part of the thing that you're paying for. People will spend so much money to get like hire a tour guide that's knowledgeable about the area that you're in. But EF offers that to you, and they are absolutely incredible people. Yvonne was amazing, and I miss him a lot.
Yvonne's a great person to travel with. I spent some time with him as well, and he would know, hey, here's a good place for us to get a sandwich. It's cheap, it's local, it's easy to be able to do. So I think if that's important to you, you can be super budget conscious. And fortunately, Christine, you experienced this, right? A lot of places in Europe and different parts of the world, travel can be way more accessible. Train systems, bus systems, cheaper flights, they're easy to be able to do if you want to go above and beyond. And then we've got even since Christine joined us, which wasn't that long ago, we've added a lot of new programs as we hear more and more feedback from students. So there's more, I'll call them comprehensive programs that just include more and are a little bit more supportive. And that's part of our process to match you up with the right program that aligns with your goals there. All right, let's go to the second and maybe the most fun part of this convo, which is what was it actually like on program, right? So you leave home, you're traveling through Europe, maybe even those first 2 weeks or as you get into Spain, like what are the highlights that really stand out to you that you think back on from your semester?
I think just the overall excitement in the group was so special. Like this is a dream that so many people have and that you think about and dream about. Like I made a Pinterest board about it. And then there I was, and some of the places I went to actually were pictures on my Pinterest board, which I just found absolutely unreal. But the first 2 weeks were just like everyone was so excited and willing to do everything. Everyone wanted to try everything. It was very go, 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 but there was also opportunities for you to kind of take a step back and relax if you weren't exactly feeling up to the activity that was planned for the day. So there was some flexibility in that if like mentally you're a little drained because traveling can be a lot. But for me, I just absolutely thrived in that environment. I loved it. I was able to see so much in a short period of time, and it was very exciting. And then I'd say some highlights were so we went to Barcelona for our 2 week like quick immersion, and then that's actually where I ended up doing my language immersion. And a highlight of Barcelona was just kind of planning every single day the activity that I would get to do after class. That city is just an endless list of activities. They have everything that anyone could ever imagine. And so sitting before class started with my friends and planning our day, what we were going to be doing. We saw like every museum, every park that there really was, and every day we made an activity. And it was just so much fun. The willingness of everyone to make the most out of the situation was awesome. And it was really something I was looking forward to. And then just to see that dream become a reality was insane.
And you were in Barcelona. It sounds like you were obviously spending time at the EF school, like where you took your classes, and they offer activities sometimes. Did you sign up for things through them ever, or were you planning all things on your own?
A mixture of both. There were some like discounted trips and activities. I did a combination of both, but I also have heard some stories about like my friend Megan in Rome. She did a pizza making class, and that's a story that she'll always talk about. So the school definitely offers plenty of activities. The one thing is that you just kind of had to be on it. They signed up relatively, at least in Barcelona. They were getting signed up pretty quickly, so I'd have to kind of set an alarm of when the slots were opening up so I could get the
Yeah.
slot. But either way, even if you weren't able to kind of make it into that group, it still gave you an idea of something to do. And EF was always willing to help you plan, give you like options, activities if you needed a suggestion.
All right. So that's all sounds great, but what's it like, emotionally? And again, I think speak from your experience and maybe what you saw from friends of yours that you connected with. 1 minute you're home, the next you're on a plane about to meet all these people. You have no idea what their background is. You have no idea who you're going to click with, who you're not going to click with. Um, how'd you deal with the emotion that comes with that of integrating with a new group in a new environment? A lot of unknowns that are all happening at the same time. And I know that's one of the biggest anxiety inducing moments for our students is like that initial few days, week or so, as you're kind of getting into program. So how is that from your experience?
From my experience, it was like positives and negatives. Of course, it's you're always going to feel a little anxious when you're in a new place. That's something that like I expected when I was going into it. I knew that I was going to be nervous, but and I saw definitely within a lot of people. There was a lot of first-time travelers. I was not a first-time traveler, but there was a lot of people that it was their first time out of the country. So I definitely saw their anxiety kind of perk up when you're in a new place because it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I think the thing that mostly everyone, including myself, found comfort in was that we were all in the same situation. Like all of us knew no one. Like no one that I met had come with a friend. And so we all wanted to make friends. So everyone was trying to put themselves out there as much as possible. Or if someone noticed someone that wasn't quite ready to put themselves out there, like you were able to reach out to them because since everyone was alone, everyone was in the same situation, which I just found a lot of comfort in because there's no odd man out. And then, of course, you're spending so much time with each other that like
Right.
connection goes quickly.
Yeah,
And
you get
the
to know
other
people
crazy thing
quickly, right?
so quickly and like you're
Yeah.
think about where you are when you're getting to know someone like you'll be walking in Nice, France as an example and like there's music going like it just kind of sets the vibe of like a friendship and happy like sort of environment so um it just goes quickly way you'll get like closer with people way quicker than you'll think.
Don't you also find though on the flip side, sometimes you're going to wake up and you need to get to the airport or get to the bus and pack your stuff and it's cramped because we're in a small European room and oh my gosh, where's my passport? And you find that like you either need help or you're giving help to other people that you're with and before you know it it's like, "Oh wow, like thank you." Or glad I could help you. Did any of that happen for you too that you saw or
Oh my goodness, for sure. I was usually the person kind of offering the help. I like to pat myself on the back for that one. But yeah, everyone has different travel styles. It's definitely something, if you decide to take a gap year, that you will get used to quickly. Everyone moves differently. I feel like, I don't know, this might be niche, but if you've seen the TikToks about like airport dads, there's definitely airport dads and young
yeah.
children, like people that get there really soon versus people that are much more relaxed. And there's always going to be a balance of both. And it's just kind of navigating the people that you click with and travel well with and just being able to find the best situation for yourself that will make you feel most at ease but also like looking out for your friends because everyone deserves to have an extra hand if they need it.
Yeah, right. Because if the group isn't ready, you're not going to the next place, right? So there's
Yeah.
incentive for everyone to work together, to find ways to be able to help people that maybe need it. And it also forces you, I mean, even basic things, right? Like you'll figure out how to be organized and how to have a plan and a system and to think ahead and know what's coming for the next day, right? So that you can get the most of the experience. Yeah. Um, if there's somebody that's thinking about just a concept of a gap in general, right? Like what we do with EF, it's fairly unique. It's all international programs, right? We're going to Europe and Asia and Central and South America. Like, what would you say to somebody if they're like, I don't know, going that far away or being that far from home feels like a really, really big step. Like I think for most of our groups, like they haven't been out of the country. They haven't really traveled far away. What would you say to somebody if they're maybe in a position like that tonight?
I'd say to look inward, like to that curiosity. Like in my opinion, you're thinking about that for a reason. You might have this little dream in your head that's um, allowing you to think about these opportunities that could be there for you. And I just encourage you to think about why exactly that thought is in your head. There's going to be people, like I said, that are come from everywhere with no travel experience to travel experience. And it's just finding where you feel comfortable. And if you can see yourself in an environment that is like very exciting, trying new things, taking advantage of everything, then I'd say that you're the person that's perfect for a gap year with EF. If you're like willing to have an adventure and kind of make the most out of it, then I would say look into that curiosity and kind of remind yourself that you're thinking about it for a reason and that might kind of be your sign.
Phenomenal answer, Christine. All right, because everyone has a life and there's other stuff going on, let's transition to the last part of our topics tonight. So you do this whole semester, meet all these people, you get a chance to do your internship, you're practicing working on your Spanish in Spain. And then you come back home and it's like, all right, back to real world, school starting up. Now you've been in school, going on your second year school. What are the things that stick with you? Like, what are the things that you got from your semester that you find you stick with, or that are like, part of your day to day at this point that you reflect on?
For sure. I'd say that there are a couple of things, especially being a college student. And one of them I'd say is just my confidence in general. Um, like I said, like going to college, you're going to be in a similar situation where not many people know many people. And since you've had that experience before, if college is your next step, then you're ready for it. Like you've been in an experience that's very similar, and you're kind of able to be the one that will step forward and reach out to the people that are a little bit more reserved or put yourself out there and just make new friends very quickly because you just did that last year and you did it in a foreign country. So it just kind of gives you that like little reminder that you can do it. And just because it still might be a little bit nerve-wracking, you've done it before and you can do it again. And then that confidence goes from making new friends to doing things that would seem simple, like going to the dining hall all by yourself. Like once again, it doesn't have to be something stressful because there you were in a cafe in Paris, like eating your croissant and reading a book all by yourself. So what's a cafeteria? Um, so those are just things that I like to remind myself of whenever I'm feeling a little anxious to do something new. I think about what I have already done, and then just gives me that little bit of encouragement. And then on the opposite side of that, I'd say another thing that I keep with me is just like clarity in who I am and who I want to be, whether that goes from myself like emotionally or also in my career choice. It definitely gave me guidance, meeting so many different people and like allowing myself to see new walks of life and just see different cultures. It gives you clarity on like who you are as a person and the person that you want to be. So you're able to like work towards those goals and look inwardly on yourself. And then career wise, with my internship, it definitely gave me guidance and said that marketing was something that I think I'd be really interested in and I'd love to make a career out of it. Like here I am, as an intern for a EF gap year. I kept in contact with them because I knew that a job like this would be something that seems really exciting and interesting. Something in sales or marketing seems great now because I had that little bit of experience that allowed that light to kind of go off in my head. And it got rid of all my doubts about like having maybe working in business or marketing before. I was a little nervous, and then when I got to college, I knew I made the right decision. And if that was the opposite case, if I said, no, this is not something I want to do, then great to me as well, because that gave me guidance. And I know that I need to make another change and try out something new as well.
Do you think, Christine, that as you have gone, you're going into second middle part of your college career, not that we want to compare against other people, because your journey is yours and that's what matters, and that's what we all want to try to remember tonight. But is there anything that you've seen where you're like, oh wow, maybe I did like learn that in my gap year that other people just haven't had that experience with? Because sometimes it's almost like you don't even know what you've learned because it's just so normal to you. Have you had any moments like that?
I definitely have. Just with that extra year of experience before coming to college, it was, while I was taking language classes, they weren't like your typical classroom, what you might be thinking of. I would say that they're a little bit more fun than the normal
Yeah.
classroom. But just having that break allowed me to come to college and put my everything into it. Um, I see so many people that went to college that probably a year off might have been very beneficial to them. Burnout is so real. It was very real for me. I was not interested in my high school classes whatsoever. And I really, truly did need an academic break. I was stressed out with my grades and then just overwhelmed in general, bored in general. And then after my gap year, coming back to college, like I said, it gave me clarity on my classes. So I was taking classes finally that I was actually interested in. And then I was able to realize that here I am at a university paying a lot of money for university. And so I should take advantage of that and put my everything into it. And I was able to do that because I felt ready for a new experience versus other people who probably could have used a year off and then there they were again, trudging along in their classes, uninterested in what their major was. And you see that difference in real life. And I know that would have been me if I didn't take that year off for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for that perspective. Really, really helpful. So, all right, people, thank you all for being here this evening. Thanks for going along this ride, thinking a little bit about planning, how you can take all this info as you evaluate if a gap's right for you. I think just in closing, hopefully you've gotten the sense from us tonight. This is about people. This experience is about people. It's about connecting with yourself, with the world, with the other people in your group. The way that we operate is that we want you to connect with us. Our admissions goes through our admissions team. There's no place to apply online or anything like that. We think it's really, really important that we connect with all of our students and families. So whether that's over the phone, Zoom, text, like we'll do anything we can to make it work easy for you. But if tonight resonates with you, the best next step is to speak with your gap consultant. So you've either heard from them in an email, a text, a call so far, or you will tomorrow. We'll shoot a quick introductory welcome and be able to continue the conversation as well. We had a question about the brochure, which you can actually just navigate right on our website. You'll be able to request that brochure. If that doesn't land, your gap consultant tomorrow, we can make sure that we can get your correct address and get that sent and shipped to you as well. So again, hopefully folks can connect with us and we can continue the conversation in the next few days. Christine, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your experience, for pushing through a little bit of sickness too. And I hope that this isn't overstepping. Christine has said this to me before and before we went live tonight, but if you want to connect with Christine, talk one-on-one, talk about specifics to what she did or what you might be interested in, I think you're totally game for it, right, Christine?
Yes, I'd love to talk to you guys for sure.
Okay,
I love
cool. So
talking
we
all things gap year, always.
amazing. All right, good. We can help set that up too with your connect with your gap year consultant, and we can get you connected with Christine. So I know some of us might have homework that we need to go do or dinner that we need to take care of. So we're going to wrap up tonight. Thank you guys all for being here. Hope to talk to everybody soon and be well.